Testing 1, 2, 3. Testing 1, 2, 3. Start at 115. 115. All right, testing 1 2 3. Testing 1 2 3. All right, let me kill my background music. Find your cursor here. All right. Hope my voice is coming in all right. If not, I apologize. Good afternoon to everybody. Today is the first day of spring, I believe. um, let's talk about what I'm trying to do today. And I'm scared, but I'm not afraid. So what does that mean? I'm scared, but I'm not afraid. So I'm scared to find out the truth behind all this when it comes to my people. I'm not afraid though because we have a monster without a face chasing us down right now, this coronavirus. So, we all have to go through this together. We all have to deal with this, and we have to be ready. We're not ready. And most strikingly for me, what makes me sick about this whole thing is when South Korea started getting some illnesses, like that should have been a warning for everybody to start finding out what we need to do. Get testing ready. Who had the test available? Go get it. Get your country ready. Get everybody in position, because without the test, no one knows who has it. No matter what anybody says, no one knows who has it until you come down with symptoms. Of course, in a flu season, it seems like anybody can have the symptoms, but this is a totally different beast. And for most of us, we're forgetting something. We're forgetting that our country for the last couple of years has talked about immunization, getting the flu shot. So there's a lot of you out there that had the flu shot, and you're thinking to yourself, well, I might not be effective, or maybe not, bother get to our family that much. It still may. It may happen. No one knows. No one knows. So I have no script. I have nothing in front of me for the next hour and change, maybe 2 hours, maybe 3. I don't know how deep I'm going to get today. But we are going to try to find our history. So I had stated before that, well, let's say what was said to us in history, because most of our history of our background, of what we know of our race, came from our teachers, and some of the culture, if you want to use it. I don't like using that word, but culture came from our family. So we're going to do this in a different way, because I'm not the African that they're calling the African. They're calling us African Americans, niggas, whatever the hell you want to call it. All right, we're going to find out today. We're going to get the first couple steps done. Because when I ran across this on Monday, I mean, I haven't teared up and cried for a while. I mean, I'm talking years, years. I mean, when my brother passed away, that was, it was just something tough, and when I ran across this one thing that kind of said, wow, if that's the case, then we have to dig deeper. It just did so much. It made me question everything that I was taught for a reason. Because, all right, let's back up. Let's back up. And I hope I'm not all over the place. That's one of the reasons why I have the chat line open. So if you're watching on Facebook, let me see. So if you're watching on Facebook, if you're on my YouTube channel, Harry Jackson, just type in Harry Jackson and then just search it so you see my ugly mug. If you're with me, let's see where we're at. So Nemo TV, I appreciate you guys overseas. Thank you very much. Also Ma Crush, I appreciate all you guys watching this today. Thank you very much. My Smashcast people, thank you. Vaughn Live, that believe that's also overseas. So there's 4 channels overseas. We have Facebook, and then we also have YouTube. So I appreciate it if you guys are able to check any of this out. And you know what it does? Let's say you're not copper skinned. Let's say you're not so-called African descent. It gives you an opportunity to kind of get some understandings that you probably never had with our people, whether you care or not. That's up to you. I care because the world just is not rotate has never rotated the correct way with anything. Those that have power gain more power. Those that don't have power have to fight their way and claw their way up the ladder in order to find power. I just heard a news story just 25 minutes ago, and it talked about the Brooklyn Nets and how the whole team was able to get the coronavirus test, and I guess they found out 4 of them tested positive, including Kevin Durant. And it's just sad because if the rich can find the test and get the test and find out ahead of time, because they don't want it to affect their families, and the main reason they took the test as a team was because they played against Golden State before the league was shut down. But that tells you that they were able to have access to the test. Just like Amy Goodman from Democracy Now! So her show ran earlier this morning. I just caught it probably about an hour ago. And she had stated in the report, let me see if I can remember correctly. She stated in the report that the United States has ran 60,000 tests of the coronavirus when it was first, discovered in Washington back in January. And I'm like, wait a minute, that makes no sense. Because we didn't hear anything about 60,000 tests. And they said that South Korea, during the same time, South Korea ran over 350,000 tests. But yet, we didn't hear anything about South Korea even getting any kind of illnesses until February. So I was like, well, the math is wrong here. Something's not right, because we're just now finding out more about the test even being available. So I'm trying to figure out who's wrong and who's right here, because there's lives that are at stake, plain and simple. So even back in January, if we ran 60,000 tests, if this was a true story, then why weren't we duplicating the test then? So that we can prepare the rest of the states if this thing continued to grow. It just makes no logical sense. And if you don't understand or believe what I'm trying to say, just go to democracynow.com and watch today's episode, and you'll hear exactly what she said. All right, so the picture behind me, as you can see, well, on the green screen, but so I showed this yesterday. It's the Kai's. So they spell it Kai. It's Dragon Ball Z Kai was the animated series through anime. Very popular series. I don't want to get too deep into this, but I do want to just show you how very weird this photo that I found was, because these are the 12 Kais. You can count them. There's 12 of them. And as powerful as they are. And they even have these little earrings. And if you look at the earring, it's the same little ball thing that a couple of the statues from Egypt, from the pyramids, have. I don't know. It's just kind of whack. So we're gonna go deep because we have nothing to hide. We have no leg in the game right now, and I want to talk about something serious to start this off. And no one's really come at it this way before. I'm upset, but I have to talk about it for a minute, and then we're gonna get right into hunting down our family tree. And as you know, the old fable was with I think it was Paul Bunyan. I believe he had the axe and he had the ox, right? And he went around cutting down trees, but he was a giant. So just think about that for a little bit. But I want to start this off on something that I heard in a conversation a couple weeks ago, and I chimed into this news station and gave them my 2 cents, and it shut everybody up. They really couldn't say anything. They were like, "What?" So I'm gonna try to talk loud enough so you don't have to turn anything up. And I appreciate it. Listen, if you want, put something in the chat. I'll be more than happy to respond to it. I'm gonna give out my work cell number. So if you want to call and just give your 2 cents, as long as you're not swearing and trying to act all stupid, that's just fine. I'll see what we can put together. But I'll let it be heard right here live on the stream. So 607-372-5465. We are hunting down the copper skin race or races. Because, there's your copper. There's your copper. And ironically, of course, with all denarii, or all coinage from all races of the world, ironically, the one with the least amount of value is the copper, huh? That's how you put it to us. That's how you did it to us. The least in value. That's what they did in our face. So the question in this radio show was, do you think it's time for reparations? And they were getting callers from all over. Most of them coming from religious people. You could tell they were either Baptists or Christians, something along those lines. And they're going in and talking and saying that when we were slaves and this and that. First off, not everyone was slaves. We need to understand that there was a difference between the yard slave and the house slave. The house slave was not the same ones that were out in the field. Okay, the copper skins and the mixed races, because we forget a lot of these slave masters, a lot of these other people were raping our people, producing offspring and leaving them out there with them. But they would also allow the house slave, if you want to call it, to help with nursing inside the house with their own kids. Well, why was that? Why was that? See, they never really explained that part when they were teaching us about slavery back in the day in, early high school, especially in middle school. They always put us in the jungle, out in the field, running around with our spear and this and that. Come on. I never could understand it, because they would always show our people freaking naked in the fields, And you got kids sitting there in the classroom with you, looking and just laughing, and you're like, this is whack. So, and what I mean by that house person, that house slave, those are the ones that were over us. Those are the ones that signed a treaty back in the day that they would not be classified as slaves. It doesn't matter what anybody says. Go look it up. Go look it up. That dude and us, totally different. So we have to go there. Because that dude, if you want to call it that, that's all I'm just going to add. That dude knew who they were. They've got it in their Ethiopian textbooks. They've got it in their documents, in their courthouses over in Africa. They do. Everything that happened in this land with our people, they have it. And we need to find it. I'm going to find it today because I ran across it. And when I ran across it, so it's not just about finding the hidden things, because you got to understand 85% of the true history is buried. Buried. Well, what do you mean by that, Harry? Well, go back to any early 1700 map. So we're talking from the 1600s, when you say 17th century, 1600s. And look at the maps of what they would call the three Indies. The three Indies. Okay, that's what we called it. That's what they called it, excuse me. And if you notice where today's United States is, out in the west coast of California, there was a land that was just outside of the coast of what today is California, Washington State, Oregon. One huge chunk of land. And it was still on their maps in the early 1700s. And then, boom, the next map that was done, the land's gone. What happened to that land? All right. As you can tell, I don't really have a script, so I'm going to try to keep moving here. And like I said, even if you don't get a chance to check this out, I'm doing this for myself right now because I don't know how bad this coronavirus is going to get. I don't know if it's going to take my wife, it's going to take my kids, it's going to take all of us. Maybe it'll barely touch us. Maybe it won't touch any of my family members outside of this house. Who knows? But there has to be a high, high, high level of sadness out there from these ones passing away as fast as they are passing away. Yet people easily say, well, you know what? People die from the flu. It's a common thing. Not the way they're passing away with this coronavirus. Not the way they are. Even if you survive it, you have damage to livers, your lungs, that will not go away. You have coronavirus that you may not get all the deep symptoms, but you're still contagious. So what's going to possibly reactivate that contagion? And that's why our governor, the president, everybody shut down schools, because they know it's going to take longer than 30 freaking days, 60 days, 90 days to try to get through this. They're talking 12 to 18 months. If that's the case, well, they also said that that's how long it might take to get a cure. There's no way we're prepared for what we have to go through. So to keep my mind off of that and stay focused on family, I have to go and try to hunt down my family. So back to my quick point on this story from this radio station. About almost 4 weeks. I think it was 4 weeks ago. Maybe it was 6 weeks, because it was before the corona stuff really started getting serious. We were only hearing a little bit about it. But anyway, they asked a question about reparations. And I was listening to everybody's comments, and they're like, for what they did to the slaves, and this and that, and I was like, yeah, you got some good points. You're right. You're right. You're right. And I got on. And I waited 10, 12 minutes before they finally, had me on. But I was, on the phone, on hold, waiting. And the first thing I said, well, I think it's so crazy that, we had President Obama in the office for 8 years. And the second I said that, the guy on the other side said, well, they had legislation. Now, this is a guy that was defending why they should get reparations. So he jumped in and said, they had legislation, for passing it, and they were working on this and that. I said, listen, I said, what does that matter? If it was supposed to happen, it would have already happened. And everybody kind of went quiet for a minute. And I said, let me tell you why. I said, I want you to think of reparations as a definition instead of an act. And I said, yeah, it seems on the outside that we all have freedoms. Think about it. I mean, we have the freedom to hop in a car and travel to another state, stay in a hotel, go visit, go sightseeing, go to Hawaii, go on vacation. If we have the money, this and that. That's freedom to a certain extent, right? But we all have to pay our taxes. So a little bit of that freedom's taken away, right? And the guy jumped in automatically again and said, well, yeah, I mean, pay Caesar's thing to Caesar and God's thing to God. And I said, listen, do you really think the true creator would say to his people, pay Caesar's things to Caesar out of respect? Knowing when we have bones with skulls in them in these hills, all the mounds. Do you think he cared about a Caesar? I said, that doesn't make any sense, does it? Total silence. I said, so back to my point. I said, listen to this. I said, I know we haven't looked at it like this before, but this is where we've gone wrong so many times. We haven't looked at it like this before. I said, ask yourself this question. Now, this is on reparations. I said, if you look at the definition of reparations, that means being paid back for wrongs that were done or committed to you. So let's look in our world, present day, when I was on the phone with him, present day, and I said, tell me who's received reparations. Total silence. So I went down the line. I said, the Jews who claim they're God's people, reparations. I said, the Indian in this land today who are calling themselves the Indians, reparations. So the guy automatically jumped in and said, how? They have land, right? Didn't they get a contract from this government, right? So they're in the land getting paid by casinos, etc., etc. Reparations. What about the Europeans that are here? They are now Americans that were born in the land. Well, they get reparations too. Well, how is that possible? They don't really get reparations. You got to work and earn it. And this, where they get their money from? From their family trees. Where did their family trees come from if they weren't originally Americans? Reparations. Those reparations came from the backs of copper-skinned people. So the biggest question has always been when we were talking about this, I said is, look, you could even say Africans have received reparations. They got land. The only race in the entire world that people really truly don't know where the hell they came from is the copper-skinned black man. Period. Period. They know where the Spaniards came from. They know where Puerto Ricans came from. They know where all those people came. They even know where the Haitians came from. Yet, I feel personally, as we were talking about this, is that they're all my people. Because bottom line, We have to live and we have to work together in order to survive. That's part of being human. But if they haven't given you reparations before, what makes you think that they have an excuse for why you haven't gotten it? You would have had it already. Can they pay you back? No. No, they can't. Not for the hundreds of millions of your people that were shot in the back alone when they were given freedom from slavery and told to get off the plantations and they could leave if they wanted to, and they turned and started walking away, not running, walking, and were getting shot in the back. So then they started running and they were getting shot in the back. Why were they getting shot? Because the slave owners themselves were pissed that they were given freedom. They no longer was going to work their land that was really never their land to begin with. And what were they doing in a lot of those fields? Why were they picking cotton? Where did the cotton plant really originate from? How did it get here in this country? See, we don't want to dig down into a rabbit hole that we've never ventured into before. You have to go into something that you helped dig yourself. So this rabbit hole and what I'm doing with this series is holes that were already dug by people that run the world. And we're trying to climb into some of these just to look around and see what we see, piece it together, know what it is, and get out. So when I brought that up that way, I said, look, bottom line, the whole bottom line truth is copper-skinned people have nowhere or no place to rep. That's reparations. Everybody's repping the so-called Indian, the so-called Jew who's supposedly God's people, the so-called Europeans, it doesn't matter. They're all repping already. There's nowhere for you in the script. But that also tells you one major thing. That just like we haven't been in their script, maybe we're not in their writings either, the way we thought. See, I always used to think, as an innocent, idiot back in the day, that, a ghetto was, a place where poor people live. You know what I mean? It's in major cities, Come to find out it's a prison. It's concrete jungle, whatever you want to call it. It's a prison, and you had to work your way out of it. Rather, you did things you didn't really want to do to get enough money to get out, or if you try to, get your smarts up and, get yourself into a college that would help you get out, and then you turn around and help your other family members and friends get out. But the word ghetto itself came from a people that have received and still receive today reparations. The Jews. That's their word. Didn't know that. So now we're in an age called, how did Daniel put it in the so-called Bible? And this age is also known as the Cosmin age. But we're in an age where it's iron mixed with clay, right? Iron mixed with clay. In the video that I did that talked about Abraham Lincoln, so all you have to do is go to Harry Jackson, pull up the video, you'll see Watchtower on one side and Lincoln all in the same picture. It's a 5-hour video. I get it. I understand. I apologize. But if you watch that video, I show you in there that Jehovah's Witnesses or Protestants, Christians. See, we're going to go through the 4 horsemen in a few minutes because those 4 horsemen are actually the 4 pillars. You need to understand who those 4 pillars are. I didn't write it. This was written in 1517 in the original book of the OSP that tells you that's the book of Jehovah or Yahweh or whatever you want to call it. But we found it. But in those writings, it tells you who these people really have been this whole time. They're just wardens. They're watching certain people who we need to find who those certain ones are. But they're watching certain people and doing whatever the hell they want. All under the guise of the ones in the skies. It's that simple. So we're going to begin our search in the OSP book, but there's another book I want you to see, and then there's another book I want you to see. So I want you to turn this into like a big old library club, and we're gonna try. And you know, it's kind of weird because I grew up late. So what I mean by that is when I was like 13. Like I said, if we weren't in that religion, it'd probably been totally different. But when I was 13, you know, there's only so much you can do outside of the house. So, you know, I was big on a cartoon called Transformers, and also the other one was He-Man. He-Man always got to me because he always said by the power of Grayskull, I have the power. You know, and he couldn't lose. You know what I mean? And then you realize his sister, when they brought her into the video, into the series, it was Athena, I think it was, or whatever. But they were talking about the gods back then. You know, and then they came out with what? The Thundercats. You know what I mean? Thundercats. Oh, y'all know what I'm talking about. Y'all know that. You know, we had G.I. Joe, all that shit. But I talk about Transformers only because if you know a little bit of the history of Transformers, Optimus Prime, before he was called Optimus, I forget his other name, but he was a librarian. That's how he had him as disguise, as a librarian who was, you know, always just looking, research, because he was trying to find if he was in a certain line. There was something always about him that he felt in his heart. And he wanted to know if he was in that line or not. So he became a librarian just so he had access to all the books. Now, his nemesis, or his villain that he had always stopped in most of these shows, was Megatron. Ironically, we have Enoch that they call Megaton, or Megatron, or whatever the fuck. It's pretty close, ain't it? It makes no sense, does it? Ironically, Megatron's tone, his skin tone, his metal, is gray. He's a gray. And ironically, he's a lawyer. You know, even these bitches at Jehovah's Witnesses up at the top have done nothing but protect themselves with lawyers. Why? They're the true pawns. They're the true pawns in their chessboard, are these lawyers. I'm not going to bitch about them anymore because I already showed you guys the evidence and the proof. I just wish my own parents would take a look at that one video at least and realize that we've got something killing our people now today, everybody's people. And at least we get an opportunity to be around our family when we're trying to deal with this. That's all I really wanted. That was it. So I'm going to take a quick break, make sure that we're doing okay on the stream, and we're going to crack open this egg. What I want you to do, you should be a little nervous because, you know, they gave us a dude by the name of Jesus. They gave it to us. Remember, we got Jesus during slavery when we had to have lost a war because there's no other slaves in the world that were just born, instantly created, and boom, you're a slave. Oh, based on your skin tone, you're a slave. Even the Mormons claimed that there was a group of people that couldn't decide if they were going to rock with Jesus or rock with Satan. Bitch, I got you. See, because when your Jesus was Satan, same dude, no, that's not true. Your Jesus and your Yahweh, they're the same cat. I'll prove that shit to you. Then you can shut the fuck up. But they claim that, you know, because they couldn't decide if they wanted to rock with Jesus or rock with Satan, God struck them with color. and they became the slaves. Get the fuck out of here. That's the biggest, sickest, racist shit ever. And you got away with it, man. What the fuck? All right. I promised myself I was going to try not to swear too much. So I'm going to get my black velvet whiskey ready and drop that in my coffee. We're going to get to work. We're going to find what we find, and we're going to do it together. So we're not reading into the thing. We're just reading. And if it leads us somewhere else to search for something else on top of it on the same subject, that's what we're going to do. I mean, no one really understands who Alexander the Great really was. But our history and our historians basically try to say, oh, well, this is who he is. The fuck out of here, man. It's time to find out who these cats are, because at the deepest levels of mortar, we're going to find out that these very spirits that we've been using this whole time are also the same ones that created all the illnesses that we face today. Period. So I'm going to go away for about 4 or 5 minutes. I'll be back. And if you're with me, I appreciate it. If you pick up on this at a late time, I appreciate it. If you've never heard of it and just want to be entertained for a little bit, this isn't entertainment. This is education. We're learning together. And we're using their books. We found some. These are the books that no one really had access to, so you couldn't use it as a reference. You couldn't use it as a study guide. I want you to think about religion real quick. The reason why they try to tell you, read your Bible, read your Bible, read your Bible, read your Bible is because it's just like reading your lines to a play, and it's your turn to get up on stage and play. Well, you got to know your lines. Period. And back then, during slavery, we had to learn how to read. Bitch, we've been on the planet longer than anybody, I think, and we had to learn how to read. We would have already known how to read based on the language we must have had before. See, it comes down to a lot of things, and you don't understand how complicated this is because the demons themselves help put this shit together. That's simple. So I'll be back in about 4 or 5 minutes. Enjoy a little bit of background music if you can, and I shall return.
coming out here? Your friends coming over today or you over? Alright, we get ready to lock things up. The party's gonna go down. We're gonna lock up into our homes. Watch. Ain't just gonna be old people. Watch. What do they call that martial law anyway? Come on.
Sorry, it took a little while. I had to start some coffee up so my black velvet whiskey will be ready. It's aged 3 years. Weird, but anyway. So again, if you're with me, thank you very much. If not, that's all right too. Um, like I said, I'm a little afraid, a little nervous. Not afraid, but I'm a little nervous about what we're about to show. So we have a couple more minutes before this coffee is ready, and then we're gonna dig deep. I hope your family's doing okay. When I went yesterday to go pick my nephew up and bring him over, I was driving down Riverside Drive, and I just noticed there was a lot of people out walking. Some people are jogging. Everybody's kind of doing their thing. They've got this look like everybody's in like a zombie apocalypse right now. Seriously, like they seem as if they don't know what to do. Like we're waiting for something to happen. It's almost like back when I was younger, and I knew I was gonna get in trouble. I was gonna get a beating from my dad or whatever, and my mom would always send me up to my room and wait until he got home. And when he got home, he would always wait like an extra hour. Sometimes, I mean, there was only one time where he came straight up, but like, he would wait like an hour. And you're sitting in that room, just you know you're about to get it bad as you usually do, but it was never listening for the clock and hearing the ticks and waiting for him to come up the stairs. It was always how he came up the stairs. The second he started, it was always like you heard it coming up, and it was like, oh my god, this is it. Oh. No matter what you said, no matter what you did, you took a beat down. Like that's the feeling right now that it seems like everybody has with this coronavirus thing coming to us. It's slowly coming, and we don't know who it's gonna affect, who it's gonna take from us, and we have no defense, and we don't see it coming. So I understand. And if I could give you any kind of confidence at all, I mean, we're talking about a cold. It starts as a common cold. So if you don't have any of those symptoms, the best thing to do is, keep your O.G.G going. I don't know what it is that we're going to do to stop this thing. I don't think anything can be done. And you know what? I'm not going to cry about it. I'm not crying because their Bibles claimed that the end is nigh. The end is this. Armageddon. Armageddon, if you think of the name Arm, if just A-R-M, Arm. Armed, whether it's guns, not whatever. It's been done before. Everything in Revelation. Who wrote it? John, right? What John? Who told the story? Was this the connection to their Prester John that gave out revelations as to what was going to start their manifest destiny? Why didn't we ever look at it that way before? So sometimes you'll see me look this way. It's only because I have another laptop here, checking some stats and some pages that I was on before that I need to pull up here and have as reference for you guys. So that's how I'm actually going to be trying to do this. Like I said, I can't check the chat on Facebook, but I do have it on my real stream. So if I see you, I appreciate it. Just want to make sure we're okay and we're still running. And doesn't look like it's running. I don't know. Can't tell. Yep. Okay. So we're okay there. Let me check my other channels real quick. Coffee should be ready. So let me put something back in the stream. Hello, everybody. Again. Again, I'm. It seems like I'm stalling, but I'm just kind of nervous because when you see what I found, it's really incredible. So Again, if you're with me on any of the other channels, I really appreciate you. Thank you so very much. And we are way down in the rabbit hole. So when you make this climb into the rabbit hole, there's one thing that always happens is that you always know where you came from. You notice how we did that? Notice where you came from. But you have to go in order to find some things. See, because you're the only people that they labeled you as something, and that's what you were. That's what they called you. They told you came from monkeys, apes, swinging from trees, all this shit. I'm sure you heard of it all before. Come to find out, the copper-skinned black man doesn't have Neanderthal genes. It's been proven. But the African black-skinned man does. See, that should have been enough alone for the copper skin and the so-called black skin to sit down at the same table and start talking and ask some questions like, what's going on? Because if you all know correctly, the African black man's skin used to hate us. Yeah. So originally, was the African black skinned man taught to turn the other cheek? You ever ask yourself that question? See, we all are inside now, almost like in our own caves because of this coronavirus thing. We're shutting things down. We're telling older people not to get out of their homes for 3 months. You can only be close to somebody within your arm's length. I mean, come on. So since we have that type of time, maybe this is a good time for the copper skinned person to sit down and take a look back at what they've done, the journey they had to make. Their blood spilled more than any other blood in the land, outside the land, anywhere else in the entire world. So I'm going to begin the search with a question. I'm going to go get my coffee. I'm going to put my whiskey in it. We're going to get to work. We are now an hour already through this. So if you're with me, you really cared. If you're not with me, you didn't give a fuck. So that's fine. So the question I'm going to give anyone that looks at this video: are you one of them on that picture behind us? Or are you the Gokus and Vegetas and the other characters in the Dragon Ball Z series? Are you an Autobot? Or are you part of the Decepticons? Are you of Skeletor? Or are you of the He-Man? See, because we forget there's a story out there. It's called the Book of O.G.G. O.G. O.G. Who's the O.G.? Everybody knows what that nickname is for. It's just kind of weird how it all adds up. But in the story of Og, who's he battling with? Who's his main, largest, craziest threat ever? Moses. So ask yourself this question: why don't we hear more about it in the writings of the first 5 books of the Bible about Og, King Og? Because when you see more and read more about King Og, then you realize you're closer to our time than you were to supposedly back when they claimed it was written. So we have to go through the Torah. We got to look at the Talmud. We got to look through the Sefer. We got to go through all these books to see if they're telling the same type story or if someone's detracting it and changing it around. See, if they can't even tell you what the United States originally was called and the many different names it had, they can't tell you about that. but you only read about it in their secret books, old books from the 1400s, 1500s, and 1600s. Then you see why a certain group or a certain race's people kept getting buried and buried and buried by more dirt. There's more dirt over our race than there is over the bones of giants. Remember, they all made the paper in the late 1800s and the early 1900s, but that's because that's when the European really started flooding the land. And they came over with a destiny. What was the destiny? Go retrieve the bones and the gold that's in the land. Well, in order to do that, you got to own the land. You got to take possession of the land. They did that. I've always asked the question, wherever the Tower of Babel was, where were all the races in the world at that time? Because everybody was helping build this thing. So when it fell, who survived and where did they go? We don't have a whole lot of stories, even in their Bible, about what happened when the tower was struck and what happened to the tower, what happened to the people as they scattered. But weirdly enough, if you listen to what happened after their Jesus died and 3 days later he meets with the disciples and the 120 in the upper room, and their so-called languages changed and they went out 2 by 2 their separate directions. Remember that story? Well, didn't it also say in Babylon that their languages was confounded? So they were confused. They couldn't get the work done. It took a year to get to the top of this thing. And we're not talking about the people being 6'2". We're talking about the people being 18 feet, 24 feet, 36 feet tall. And it took a year to get to the top of this thing. So they want you to believe that that big ass building was in Iraq, close to the water, and when it fell, they can't find artifacts in the water underneath the land. They can't find it. Well, we're going to find it, because we have to find what we need to find. See, I think this really comes down to this simple point. I made it a hunt for who my people were, because my last name is Jackson. My dad's name was Jackson. My mom's name, her maiden name was Washington. We got slave names. Slave names. But the African doesn't have slave names. But we do. Named after some of the forefathers that started this country. And I think it's the most weirdest thing, because when they started the country, they had hemp. And we're back to the hemp. We're back to the hemp days right now. They legalized weed. Same thing they used to put people in jail for. They're illegal in states now. Do they know this is the end and that's why? Don't know. Don't know. But there are ones that do know. And we have to go through that book and go through those books. And that's what this is about today. And I know I'm past my first hour of this. I apologize. This may not be watched by anyone, but I'm just doing this because I'm kind of nervous about what's going to happen. So I'd rather at least go hunting for anything close that may be my people, and at least get to die with the knowledge that we weren't given. Or let's put it this way, maybe the knowledge of the history that was taken away. I'll give you another example. in their Bibles, they tell you about Samson, right? And he had all that hair, and he was strong. And when Delilah got him to cut his hair, he what? He lost his power. And they tell you that Samson was worshiping Delilah's God. And that's how Delilah got him to get his hair cut. And he lost his power, right? And so Samson apologizes to God and begs for his strength back. So he must have went Super Saiyan or something, and that hair just grew quick, and then boom, he just happens to move 2 pillars, and the whole thing comes down. What secret societies do we know that have pillars in their artwork? One supports the moon, one supports the sun. So who lost hair? We could say hair is heritage. Who lost heritage? Because with that heritage comes power. Look, we just supposedly celebrated what? St. Patrick's Day, right? Right? We were supposed to have all these parades, all that great stuff. I get it. Irish, luck of the Irish, I get it. But they forget to tell you that in January we had the death of Martin Luther King. So we celebrated Martin Luther King, right? Then, well, Black History came up after that in February, and of course they also give you President Lincoln. So that's one of the reasons why I shot that video with Lincoln, because I found that information on Lincoln's birthday. So that's why I shot it. But they give you Lincoln's birthday, and also another president, George Washington. So both presidents in that birthday, right? For slaves, okay. And then the next month, ironically, it's St. Patrick's Day. Luck of the Irish. Who do you think the fucking Caucasian masters were that were running the slaves? So in secession, they gave you the death of a leader that was trying to help give you freedom, supposedly, but he was a Moor. Let's get it straight. Then in the second month, February, you've got presidents that your family tree last names is named after. Maybe not Lincoln, but you got Washington, Jefferson, Anderson, Smith. All these guys. You're signing of the Declaration, all that shit, right? And then the month of March, they give you your slaves' birthdays. Your slave masters' birthdays. That's what the Irish birthday really is. Did you know that? It's all about timing, people. It's been done for years in our face. Look, I'm not trying to act like I'm a racist son of a bitch or whatever the fuck you want to call this shit, because people that know me know that I care about everybody. Otherwise, they wouldn't be with me. They wouldn't be around me. Fuck them. That's what I would do. But when you start reading in some older books, and a high majority, probably these were burnt off during the Renaissance and all that other big names they protected it with. And you want to try to at least pass away or die with a little bit of dignity of knowledge about who your people at least were, because the whole world tried to tell you they're one thing and they're not, then you should at least be given a choice. See, and that's what religion and science didn't give you. Because when you realize who their teachers are and what they did to get the teaching, you understand why so many people keep getting sick. Remember, we had planes flying overhead, dropping pollutants for years. We were blowing up nuclear bombs in the 60s in the skies. Why? So, I'm going to go get my coffee. I'm going to get my Black Velvet whiskey poured in, and it's time to open up the library, and we're going to search. So, this is a little slow, I get it, but whether we're killing time or getting ready to go down a road that anyway, we're gonna do it here. So I'll be back in another five or six, and we'll be ready to go. Be right back. Oh, I'm nervous. It's crazy. All right, be right back. we're gonna jump right in. So if you're with me again, thank you. If you're not, that's okay too. I'm nervous. I'm very nervous and never done this before. Never done this before. And I sometimes question myself and ask why not, but there's always a time in your life where you have to try. And we have to try. We don't know much. Most of us don't even understand the land we actually live on top of in this country. We don't understand what's buried so deep. And when you find out what that is, you realize something that I discovered, and we're going to find it together, but something that I discovered, that this land is the old Egypt. You get the word gypsies, that's gypsies, from Egypt, gypsies. So a question came up, in an email, as one of the comments to one of my videos. The person asked, what is the statue of Shiva doing in the Grand Canyon? How did it get there? There is over 95% of the Grand Canyon that has not been searched. But I don't want to start the search there. We're going to start it someplace else. So let's switch over. Let me go over here real quick. Oops. And just block this out. All right. Okay. So let's go. I have two windows open here, but hey. Okay. So got a couple things open. Let's start off from the very beginning here. So I typed in who was Capelia. Now in this book of Jehovah, known as the OSB. Now remember, the original was not done in English, and this is what gives credence to the French, the Spaniards. A lot of their writings, when they rewrote, they put trick letters in front of words to make the words seem like it said something else so that you could hide what it really means. But in the book of the Ark of Bond, that's what it says here. Book of the Ark of Bond, which is in the book of the OSV. Let's just read a little bit. It says, for 3 years, Capelia traveled over the land of Vindiu. What's Vindiu? What name do you hear when you say Vindiu? This is the first thing that came to my mind. Vindiu. Oh. Get rid of the V and put an H there for Hindu. See, we hear of the word Indians and we think, oh, the Indians had to come from India. Never knowing that there was also a phrase called the Indies. The three Indias. The three Indies. See, you have to take what they gave you in the book of the OSV, the book of Jehovah, and match it up to one other study in colleges known as the Arthurian studies. You know, King Arthur. And that's how we have to search. how we have to search. So why this name Capilia? Well, actually, let's see. If we hit the back page button here, we're going to find out why I searched. Nope, it's gone. Okay. So I went here, and look what pops up, too. See who was Capilia, and look what they're saying. Who was Jesus? Who was Joan of Arc? So, which one was Capilia? See, because if you find out who this Capilia person was, she was the one that supposedly helped Moses when he was in a dungeon, helped keep him alive for 10 years. Why, oh why, would Jehovah in his book want anyone that's trying to get in connect with his angels? Why would they have to know anything about that story? See, you have the book of the Ark of Bond, but then you have Joan of Arc. It's kind of tricky. I don't know if I should go down that road or not. Remember, I'm doing a lot of this right from where we see it right now. Down here it says, OSP, a new Bible in the words of Jehovah and his angel. It says, Capilia said, teach ye these things to our children from their youth up. Didn't Jehovah's Witnesses also act the same way when they read that shit saying, you know, bring up your child with the rod and also with the teachings, right? See, it's kind of very, very, very ironic that you left that religion 20 years ago, Jehovah's Witnesses, and then come to find out there was a book of Jehovah known as the OSP in 1517. It's been redone a couple times, but this book was before the Bible was written. This book, known as the OSP, is also part of the Book of the Dead. This book originally was in a giant size book. Now, some of the information came out of giant sized books. But remember, when this book was written, it was written by a man who was using astrological writing. So he was possessed, or at least was in contact with a spirit to be allowed to write. Now, as much information is written down, you would think it's Jehovah himself giving this person the exact writing. That's what the governing body members of today claim, that they get everything from Jehovah himself as his so-called direct channel. I'm not trying to make this about Jehovah Witnesses because I'm way the fuck over that. It's just ironic that the Jehovah name, the Yahweh name, is all connected to this. And you know what they don't show you in this book? The order of Melchizedek. But yet, when you find out who Melchizedek really is, you have to say the most evilest shit ever has happened. Melchizedek is Melchizedek. Melchizedek. The dick. D-I-C-K. Well, who's Dick? The only one bragging about his dick, and I say that loosely, and I hope there's nothing but 18 and up year olds watching this, but the only thing we have to go by is the picture of the Baphomet, who has a snake on his dick. The same symbol we use for medicine. Then you break down the word meta-C and sin, and that's something. Oh my God! All right, we're gonna save Capilia for a minute because I opened up a couple other windows. This was done 2 days ago, and I left this alone. I just kept it minimized, didn't touch it. There's a PDF known as Lighting the Eye of the Dragon. We're not going to go down that road because I'm going to save that for the very, very, very last of whatever I do. Whether we finish this up today or if I continue it tomorrow, I don't know. I mean, right now my stream quality is doing okay, so I appreciate it. Thank you very much, guys. Thank you. All right, we got a couple. Thank you. Twitch. Mob Crush, thank you. All right, good. I don't feel alone anymore. Thank you. So we're searching for races. So we kind of erased the copper skin comment, the black African comment. We're just looking at races alone in general because we're trying to see what really happened at the Tower of Babel back in the day. We're trying to see who these so-called sons of Jehovah are, because in this book you don't see anything for Jesus, Joshua. So we're going to see if we can find him in this book, because we have the OSV right here. It's ready to go. But we also have another book. We're going to open that up in a few minutes, because this is just a big, huge library. We're just in the library class today, okay? So I want to start this whole search at a scary spot. But before I do, there's something interesting about the word Sikhem. So let's look at that. Sikhem, let's hear it. Ready?
Sachem.
Sachem, okay. Sachem.
Sachem.
Say it again.
Sachem.
Okay. It says, among some North American Indian peoples, a chief. Hear it one more time.
Sachem.
See, the most interesting thing in the world is that these very same ones that they call themselves Indians today, whether you're Mohegan, whether you're, it doesn't matter. It seemed as if they would have 100 million stories of fighting giants. Not little cowboys, because the phrase cowboy actually is the bullhead of Baphomet. That's where they get the concept of cowboy from. It's not about raising cattle. They brought cattle. Remember, the land had to be cleared before you could bring your shit.
Sachem. Sachem.
So, we found Vindu, but we're going to leave that alone because we need to find, and we found Zoroaster. So, there's a connection in this area, and you're dealing with Persia, you're dealing with, I mean, we don't even understand who Persia really is or was as a race. If you look at all these races in the glossary, they're just Caucasians. Why? None of them look like Puerto Ricans. None of them look like Asians. They're just Caucasians. Why did they paint it that way? See, because the scariest thing I'm ever going to tell you, and this one I'm glad there's not a whole lot of people watching this, they'd have to get this far in the video to hear me say this. The Book of Jehovah talks about beastmen. He knows how he helped create them. There's a God in here that helped beautify those people. Yaqub help people to walk upright, not in a righteous position before their God. No, walk upright, as in to stand up and walk straight. This is deep history, and they've had it the entire time. Why weren't we taught these things so that we can make a choice? Because if you're not allowed to make a choice, you're automatically the slave. Doesn't matter. We're just all slaves now, that's all. So I want to start here, and then we're going to go to the OSB itself, but I want to start here on this name. This is the most scariest name that I've ever found in this book of the OSB. So they're calling Hiawatha a famous Native American Indian chief. They don't give you a whole lot of information to it, because when you find out who he was, you're going to find Genghis Khan was here, that Genghis Khan went up against Hiawatha's people and Hiawatha. You're going to find out that Genghis Khan is the one that killed Hiawatha's daughters. See, if you know anything about the Arthurian studies, you know exactly what I'm talking about. It's already been written. They just didn't say who that so-called Prester John was, that Genghis Khan or Chinggis Khan, whose daughters he killed. And this is where I teared up. Let's say I'm not Indian, okay? So what? I still teared up over the story. Who was a famous person in the Iroquois tribe? Didn't look through that one. Who was Ada the Who? You know what that sounds a lot like? The phrase Adonai. We know that phrase, religious people, right? I can't even pronounce his name, but look at what we see in this name. We see a state name. Can you guess the state? Watch. Tatadoa was a Native American, and I can't pronounce that name. What was it again? How does she pronounce it?
Sachem.
Okay, Sachem. Okay. Tatadoa was a Native American and Sachem. So Sachem was a chief of the Onondaga Nation. You know, in the Syracuse, New York area, Onondagans, you know, they get their money from the Turning Stone Casino people. So this Hiawatha, the famous Native American Indian chief, was in this area. Huh. So let's just see who Tadadahu was, because I just want to make sure we got, unless this is somebody else, or possibly the brother of Hiawatha. Let's see. But again, it says, anyway, so back to my point. Do you know what that looks like right there? If you drop the T-O-D-O and stick an I there, you get Idaho. You know, the potato state, you know what I mean. Let's keep reading. Of the Onondaga Nation before the Diganwida and Hiawatha formed the Iroquois League. It says the Diho. So this is a people, and the Hiawatha. So that has to be possibly a people and not just an Indian chief. I don't know. Formed the Iroquois League. So that meant other Indians would have been against these guys. But if they all kind of looked alike or type of people, but they were only different based on their skin tone, changes the whole game, son. See, because some were sent by King Ferdinand, and they were here in this land. We gotta go down these roads. I have to. This is just my journey, if you want to call it that. So nobody else is watching. It's all right. I appreciate it. If you are with me, thank you. Thank you very much. So let's just keep reading on the surface. You gotta keep opening windows and see what they're trying to say it meant before you can understand the meaning. And you gotta remember, The letter J is only 500 years old. Wait, that can't be possibly true, Harry. What the hell are you talking about? So, let's type it in. How old is the letter? It should be in here already. There it is. There's how old is the letter Y, how old is the letter J, A. These are all Enochian letters, I believe. I'm not for sure. But anyway, let's go here. How old is the letter J? 500 years old. I understand that the letter J is relatively new, perhaps 400 to 500 years old. Yet this book was written in 1517. So they knew the real spelling of this Yahweh or this Jehovah. It was an I in front of it instead of a J. Okay? We got it. So was the same trick of the I, should that be replaced with all the J's that are in this thing? Don't know. Remember, a lot of Jewish people would tell you, oh, it wasn't a J, it was a Y. Well, Y and I are also interchangeable with the letter J. The letter J was an I, but they put a fish hook on it. Fishers of men, Jesus, fish telling his disciples to be fishers of men. It's going to all piece together, no matter what. How old is the letter J in Hebrew? Short answer is no. You ask how old is it, you said no. There was no J in Hebrew. There was and is a letter representing something like Y in Hebrew, but later translators and editors rendered various names with a J in the text. So they're trying to tell you that the Hebrew language never had the letter J. It had the letter Y or the letter I. Okay, thank you for the information. We appreciate it. Now, was the letter J in the Bible? I'm sure we know the answer to this. And look at the Z. You need to understand the letter Z. And that's why the letter Z is at the end of the alpha beta, known as the alphabet. The letter Z. And you know what's crazy about the letter Z? It's how it moves. That's how these spirits move. They want you in a circle to get in contact with them, but when they're on the move, they move in angles all the time. Why? So we're going to put both of these down there. We're going to open up both of these real quick. And this is crazy right here. Everybody knows what Jesus was called without the letter J. Ready? They're going to say Yeshua, right? Yeshua, right? Was the letter J in the Bible? Here it is. The letter J wasn't invented until the 1500s, but the Bible was written in the 16th. See, this doesn't make any sense. This doesn't make any sense at all. Because even in their French writing, they didn't include the letter J. They included the letter Y or I. This is trying to say something completely different. This is why you know they changed the shit. Because 2 years ago when I found this, they didn't have this section saying this. And that's why you got to understand the game Google has continued to play with Wikipedia. If you remember, Wikipedia used to have its own symbol. What was it? It was the opium plant. The opium plant. The letter J wasn't invented until the 1500s. So there was no official Jesus, John, Jacob, Jonah, Joseph, Jude, or Jesse, father of King David. No J for Jesse. So what was Jesse's real name? Why is it so important? In the original 1611 version of the King James Version of the Bible, there was no J letter in this Bible because it did not exist. So if it didn't exist in the 1611, then how can you say the letter J wasn't invented until the 1500s? It seems as if the letter J would have been in the 1611 version. But who helped write that book? Who was around in the early 1600s that we had no clue about? You ready? We're going to go find them right now. That's why this search is the way it is. And this is why you have your thee, thous, and arts, and art, thou, and all that. We've heard that type of talk in plays, in stages. Stage. It's a stage. We're reading from scripts in a book. They're calling a Bible. Babel. Bible. Bible's about understanding. Babel was the loss of understanding. Bible, scripture. You're reading scripts. There's a play. When you're reading your script, read your lines. You're reading the lines. Scripts. Let's type in a name. William Shakespeare. Ready? Here we go. Now, take a look. The Bible, the King James Version, wasn't written until when? 1611, right? Did you know that in 1601, King James came to these lands? He came to the three Indies. He went back and started writing. In fact, I believe he was complete in 1606, but I could be wrong because they're saying 1611, which is 5 more years later. But he put together the King James Bible. Now, wait a minute. So, what scripts would he have had access to in order to say, you know what, I'm going to compile all these things together, I'm going to call it a Bible, and it's going to be the King James Version? What, the Dead Sea Scrolls, maybe? Essenes? The Essenes are in the OSV. Your Dead Sea Scroll writings are part of the OSV. Did King James have access to the OSV? William Shakespeare was an English poet, playwright, and actor, widely regarded as the greatest writer in the English language and the world's greatest dramatist. He is often called England's national poet and the Bard of Avon. That's very interesting there. But his birth, April in the spring, we are springing ahead now. April 1564, he died in 1616, 5 years after the King James Version was written. I ask you again, who helped write the Bible? If the king is making all this noise that he's going to put together a Bible, and you have someone as highly respected as Mr. Jim or Bob or William Shakespeare, you know he wanted to be a part of it. So was he commissioned by King James? You know, because we say all of our preachers are commissioned by God, right? So was he commissioned? Pretty much. I'm sorry, but I've been in sales before all my life too. And when you work on commissions, you are given power and money to do a service. That's commission. It's never been any other word. Now, it's kind of weird because if you look at where Mr. William Shakespeare comes from, well, let's go see. Mr. William Shakespeare, everybody. Where was he born and raised? Oh, let's go see. Born in Warwickshire. Ring a bell, Jehovah's Witnesses? He was born in Warwickshire. You notice the trees have no branches on their flag, yet the bear is in an upright position. Their claim to the throne, more or less, has to do a lot with Beersheba. Didn't know that, did you? Oh, we're going to get it. We're going to get it. We have to get it. That's why they show you that tree with no branches. It's Jacob's ladder. Did you know that? It's also made of holly. It's a Hollywood tree. So let's go to Warwickshire. Warwickshire. We're going to come all the way down here and we're going to read something together famous people if it's here. Not for sure. Education. I know I've seen it in there somewhere. Yeah, maybe not. Association Football. People. Warwickshire is perhaps best known for being the birthplace of William Shakespeare. There he is. Warwickshire. Get ready. William Shakespeare. And let's keep reading. They call it Shakespeare's County. The county has also produced other famous figures such as now, I'm going to take a 3-minute break right now because I want you to just look at this guy. And there's your Eon right here. Okay. So let's just read it. Aleister Crowley was an English occultist, ceremonial magician, poet. Well, William Shakespeare was a poet too. Now, if you look at when he was born, when he came around, you're going to get something very interesting, but let's just keep reading. Painter, novelist, and mountaineer. Why do you think he liked being a mountaineer? It's because he's in the woods. It's called Bohemian. They claim to do a lot of hunting. Yeah, they were hunting already. He founded the religion of Thelma. You really need to find that. Okay? The religion of Thelma, identifying himself as the prophet entrusted with guiding humanity into the Eon. There's an old movie out there called Eon what? Eon Flux. Your Joan of Arc of the future. Do you get where it's going? Eon of Horus in the early 20th century. You can keep writing, but we know who Aleister Crowley is all about. He's the one that says above and below, do as thou wilt, talking in the same lingo as William Shakespeare. So ask yourself, did William Shakespeare get involved with the same stuff Aleister Crowley had access to? You better believe it. And yet, William Shakespeare was part of writing the King James Version. But it goes a little deeper for you if you're a Jehovah's Witness or you know someone that's a Jehovah's Witness or studies with Jehovah's Witnesses, because bottom line, Warwickshire is where we get Warwick, New York. So you're trying to tell me that the true creator, who is the true creator of the universe, who knew what happened to his people, knew about what the seeds did to produce giants and kill all people. You're telling me the true creator had these governing body members pray and ask, should we put Bethel, the new Bethel, in Warwick, New York? Knowing that Warwick as a name came from Warwickshire. So do yourself a favor and get out of Jehovah's Witnesses as fast as you can, because they're apparently dying like all of us right now. They're not protected by this God, right? But they proclaim to be protected by God. Chosen. They built their castle in Warwick, which is really their present-day Warwickshire. Guess what road name they have leading into their Bethel location? One King's Road. Who is the one king? Let's look up religion of Thelma real quick and then leave it alone. We're just going to do this really quick. Religion of Thelma. There she is. Thelma was founded by Aleister Crowley in 1875 to 1947. And this is where we get a lot of our MK Ultra followers. who was an English occultist and a writer. In 1904, Crowley claimed to have received the Book of the Law from an entity named Awas. Watch this copy, which was to serve as the foundation of the religious and philosophical system he called Thelma. Thelma is a social or spiritual philosophy developed in the early 1900s by Aleister Crowley, an English writer, mystic, ceremonial, blah, 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 blah. The word Thelma is the English translation of the Koine Greek noun will, from the verb to will, to wish, to want, or purpose. That's what the Book of Jehovah also is about. It's pronouncing his kingdom, doing his will. The people were doing his will. It's still a war. It's called worship. 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 Let's look that word up real quick. Not worship. We're going to look up Elohos. Oh, it's a god. Okay. Well, let's see what the Elohos god is. Let's see what images look at first, because I'm always interested in images. They're always oh, son, what the oh, damn, son. Oh, shit. Oh, son, what the now you get it. Your grace. Your grace. And they're here today. But let's just read briefly what Wiki says. You know, Wikipedia sounds a lot like Wiccan, doesn't it? So I'm going to leave it here on this picture real quick. In fact, I'm going to go back to Warwickshire because we got rid of that. So let's go back to William Shakespeare. And all we want to do is go to our... Where'd it go? And you know, you forget, in the same city of Warwickshire is the same place that we got the inventor that came up with the shoes that had the teeth in the bottom of your shoe. You attach them to your feet, your shoes that you're wearing, and they're able to help make it easier to climb up ice walls. So who was climbing up ice walls? All right, so we showed you Shakespeare. He helped write the Bible. I'm going to leave it right here for a minute. I'll be back in a few minutes because we got to go deeper. So I hope you're enjoying your ride down the rabbit hole. And this is in search of who these people all are. We have to find out who we all are, because it's not really about finding my people. It's about finding everybody. Because when we can find everybody, we can see who really was serving, who was worshiping, and who wasn't. This is why, even like I said before, if you look up any Earth, Wind, and Fire songs on their album covers, there's one where it's like a pyramid and you got the four giants sitting there, the four pillars, the four giants, and then there's smaller people and smaller people. It's in the Stones. The smaller people were rocking with the bigger people the whole time, generating offspring, refilling the earth and subduing it. So I'm going to take a quick break. I will be back. And it's getting deeper. It's getting deeper. But we get deeper together. So I'll be back. right, you ready to go deeper? Let's go deeper. We're back. Let's get it. We're working on our second hour. We're getting somewhere fast. And I might go one more hour because what we're going to see is just going to blow our minds. It's going to blow our minds. And if you don't know anything, but this here, realism, look it up, Wicca, this is all the same shit, all in the same package. Look at the Baphomet here. Let's look at this picture. Schwabing, there's our medicine sign right there. He's got breast and a private. And look at this. This is scales. So he's showing you that he mixed the bloods. He mixed it. He mixed it. You see what it says? Does that not say Thelma right there? Thelma or Baphomet. You got the moon here. Yeah, look at the skulls down there. Look at this shit. As above, so below. And he's calling himself holy. Look at the halo. It's amazing. Okay, so Eloise, I don't know what this is, but is the name given to a voice that Aleister Crowley claimed to have heard in April, the spring. Now remember, there's a song by Led Zeppelin called, it goes, the mighty arms of Atlas hold the heavens from the earth. I forget the name of the song. Oh, Achilles' Last Stand. That's the name of the song by Led Zeppelin. If you know, his guitarist, the lead guitarist, used a lot of writings with Led Zeppelin's lead singer. So I'm going to say, when they got this stuff, they're calling this stuff the Book of the Law. Well, the Book of the Law is also in the OSV. 2 pillars. See the pillars? 2 pillars. So that's the name. Ewas. Ewas. Liber. What does Liber mean? Liber Al. That's Liberty. Lady Liberty. That's Thelma. Commonly known as the Book of the Law, is the central sacred text of Thelma, allegedly written down from dictation mostly by Aleister Crowley, although his wife Rose Edith Crowley is also known to have written 2 phrases into the manuscript of the book after its dictation. So they did it as a family. I'm going to keep that open because I'm going to look at that later. Because there's a lot of things in here. A lot of things. Harpocrates was the god of silence. That's why they do this all the time. Secrets. They told you that God was the first what? Secret society. In his writings. And confidentially in the Hellenistic religion, don't we have an age of time called the Hellenistic period? Developed in Platonic Alexandria Harpocrates. And now we're going to understand where the power of Alexander the Great, their Alexander the Great, Lion of Judah, got his keys to the kingdom. Hippocrates was adopted by the Greeks from the Egyptian child called Horus, your Jesus, Zeus, who represented the newborn sun rising each day at dawn. Do not sit there and tell me that the book of OSV is not about anything to do with the sun, when he talks and calls all his gods that we call gods his sons. Apollo, the Son of God. Thought, Thor, the Son of God. Osiris, the Son of God. They don't say Son of God. They say Son of Jehovah. Right in the OSB. All of it. Son of Jehovah, Son of Jehovah, Son of Jehovah. There's no Yeshua or Jesus as the Son of Jehovah. But there is an Isus. So your Isus, if you take the I and drop it and turn it into a J, it's Jesus. Jesus. Who did the slave masters sell to the slaves that had no language? They gave them the new language, and they gave them Jesus. They can't get their way out of this. They can't. No different than Jehovah's Witnesses not being able to get out of being wardens. They can't. They used the name Jehovah and told you, don't ever use his name in vain. But all the other gods are sons of Jehovah. How is that not in vain? Bullshit. So I like opening these things up because I try to piece it together and think about it. Look at this. It says, whom Crowley considered to be the great central deity within the Thelemic cosmology. Cosmology? Look at how we're spelling cosmology. Take this C and replace it with a K. Now you got our boy right here, all the way to the top. Replace it with a K, and you have Cosmon. Put a C back there. Cosmology. Put the K back. Cosmon. It's about the stars, the spirits, and the life within the stars. That's why they have us wishing on stars. Those are the bigger gods, and the littler gods are floating around all day with us right now because they opened the gates of hell a long time ago in this religion. Done by ritualistic practices. Keep going. Keep going. Look at this. Keep going. Or wait, let's go back to the other one because the other one talks about it briefly quick. All right, it says, meaning Horus the child, whom Crowley considered to be the central deity within the Thelemic cosmology, K-O-S-M-O, eon of Horus. Do you see the lotus? Do you see the cross in the center? Where have we seen the same circular thing? You ready for it? Within the pages of the Voynich manuscript. So what the Voynich manuscript shows you without you being able to read that type of language, because remember, language actually started with just sounds. When you put it together in that book, it shows you bodies, people, coming through the plant life. So everything you're trying to call a myth is real history. However, Harpocrates also represents the higher self, the holy guardian angel. Let's read this quickly. The term holy guardian angel originates in the Catholic Church. Where did the name Catholic come from? Cathay. Where was Cathay? Cathay was in the 3 Indies. Actually, in the Middle Indies, right where we here are now today, the United States. What was in Cathay? The original Canaanites. But Cathay means something different. In fact, I'm going to put it in here in a second. Where a morning prayer is recited, which reads, Holy guardian angel, whom God has appointed to be my guardian, direct and govern me during this day. Amen, which is Amen Ra. The idea of a holy guardian angel is central to the book of, not going to go there. Crowley describes the encounter in detail in the Equinox of the Gods. Let's read it, saying, the voice of Alois came apparently from over my left shoulder. You know what that is? Is when your back is turned and someone takes their pointer finger and goes, boop, 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 boop. That's actually a spirit doing that to you. So when that boop, 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 you gotta know that Alistair was blindfolded. He was already under the influence that opened his mind to be able to accept the spirits. That's why when you read the OSV, it talks you as a master and an initiate. The initiate is blindfolded and is giving the information to the master. When they're asked, what do you see? With your eyes closed, what do you see? That's seeing without seeing. We have another name for that. It's called the Holy See. I said it. The voice of Boaz came apparently from over my left shoulder, from the furthest corner of the room. It seemed to echo, I can't do it, seemed to echo itself in my physical heart in a very strange manner. He's talking as if he's an initiate. This is the words of Aleister Crowley under the influence. Hard to describe. I have noticed a similar phenomenon when I have been waiting for a passage fraught with great hope or dread. The voice was passionately poured, as if Awas were alert about the time limit. The voice was a deep timbre, musical and expressive. Music, muse, moo. This is why music is so strong in the world. Music is used to help muse, whether it calms the soul, excites the soul, does what it is, it just connects to the soul. That's why your instruments play music to involve or connect with the soul. And that's why they tell you that their Lucifer is also the Pied Piper. Expressive, its tones, solemn. You need to understand what solemn is. So we have to copy solemn and look it up. It's going to lead to somebody. Voluptuous. Voluptuous is like a heavy-set person, right? So it's heavy, tender, fierce, or aught else as suited the moods of the message. Not bass. Perhaps a rich tenor or baritone. The English was free of either native or foreign accent, and we speak the English tongue. Rather Old English or New English. Let's hear it again. The English was free of either native or foreign accent. Perfectly pure of local or caste mannerism. The caste system is all over the place, including their realm. The above, so below. There's a caste system. Thus, startling and even uncanny at first hearing. I had a strong impression that the speaker was actually in the corner where he seemed to be, in a body of fine matter, transparent as a veil of gauze. So what's the veil? or a cloud of incense smoke, like frankincense, myrrh. He seemed to be a tall, dark man in his 30s. I have to take a break for a minute because I just figured something else out. I have to take a break. I will be back in a few minutes. Oh my God.
Come in. No, I don't want it. Put it on the counter. Put it on the counter. I'll eat it, okay? Listen. Thank you. Thank you very much.
See, I want to tell you why it's so important. It's so important for us to understand you don't know the feeling. If you haven't lost a child to the flu or something like that, then you can never say you understand. We don't understand. So we can never say we understand what these people are going through. For example, in Italy, the day before yesterday, they lost 380 people, or 376 people. The day before that, they lost 326 people, or something like that, close to it. Yesterday, they lost 400 people, more than 400. That's 1,000 people in 3 days to this coronavirus. Imagine it's your children. Imagine that was your wife. This is why it's so important for us to at least know who we are. Because if we can understand who we are, then we understand if we're just fodder, or what the Jews would call goyim, or if we're part of something way more than any of that. See, in the last video, I talked about two things. I said, what's the meaning of life? Why are we here? I showed you what those meanings were. So we were not of them because we didn't ask to be born. We were supposed to be on this land to be able to make a choice. This section is so important into everything that we do. For the first time, I've read this, and this is an actual so-called spiritual moment from Aleister Crowley talking with Awas. In his description, it says it right here. It says he seemed to be, and you know, women always say sometimes they look for that tall, dark, and handsome. You know, that's what they. It says he seemed to be a tall, dark man in his 30s, well knit. The knit means coarse hair. A dark man tells you he's black. in his 30s? Their Jesus supposedly died at the age of 33. He became a so-called spiritual man at the age of 30, but he was considered a man at the age of 12 when he sat with the so-called rabbis asking them questions. In the Talmud and in the book of OSV, it shows you that a person is considered a man or a woman at the age of 12. And you got the 12 disciples, or the 12 apostles, the 12 keys, as I showed you in the beginning of this picture. He seemed to be a tall, dark man in his 30s. Remember, I didn't write this. We're looking at this together right now for the first time. So if their Jesus really never was Jesus or Jesus, but he was an Isus, because you got to understand what Abram and abracadabra means, and Abraham and Abrama mean. See, back to the Arthurian studies, we know that their Prester John, if you want to call him that, and it's so weird because people say, well, why do you call him that? Look, there's a statue in Portugal right now today. Just look it up. Look it up on Google. Statue for Prester John in Portugal. Just type it up. Type it up. I believe there's also a plaque in South Africa that says the same thing about the Portuguese travelers, the many seamen. Seamen. See, there's seamen as in, sperm. There's seamen as in, the guys that travel over water. And you got the seamen as the Holy See. S-E-E. But it talks in those plaques about them searching for Prester John for 500 years. I'm nervous to read the rest of this, but I have to read it because someone told us to read it, so let's read it. He seemed to be a tall, dark man in his 30s, well-knit, curly, knotty hair, active and strong, with the face of a savage king. So he can see this dude's face, and it's a spirit. And eyes veiled, lest their gaze should destroy what they saw. Which means if you looked into his eyes, you would basically die. The dress was not Arab. Well, that's how they have Jesus in all your books and writings. They have him dressed wearing Arab garb, right? The dress, and he shouldn't be wearing a dress, he's a dude. The dress was not Arab. It suggested Assyria or Persia, but very vaguely. So he assumed Assyria and Persia. Very, very, very important, because that is the image of their Alexander, the great Lion of Judah. I took little note of it. So why did you think in your head then that it could have possibly been Assyrian or Persian? And that also tells you Assyria and Persia didn't have someone dressed as an Arab. I took a little note of it, for to me at that time, Awas was an angel. such as I had often seen in visions, a being purely astral. In the latter written Liber, so basically it's their book. I said Liberty, but Liber 418. The voice of the A3. See how they have AE? AE is very connected with everything from Asia, spelled AE, from, what's the other one? Oh my goodness. They're all starting with AE, and A is connected to as one word, one letter. Even Eon is the same thing. Astra says, my name is called Awas. So the thing told him his name. Ask yourself this question. We've been searching for the true creator, and he's never called himself I am, but their God calls himself I am. He gave him a name, right? What's in a name? Everything. My people are the only ones in the entire world that don't have their true last names. Sick. My name is called Ewas. I guarantee you, you're not going to find this name in the OSV, but I guarantee you there's a name in the OSV that relates to this. And in the book of the law did I write the secrets of truth that are like unto a star and a snake and a sword. You have three things: a star of Renfat, a snake going up that pole that's on Baphomet, and what? A sword. The Knights, your Knights Templars, your Knights of Columbus. Well, if you learn who Columbus really was, you'll understand that they were the dogs, the Cephali. Crowley says this later manifestation took the form of a pyramid of light. We're back to Egypt. It kind of makes me wonder what else he wrote, but I really don't need to go to him. I don't, because you're talking about their form of what they call elemental, which is really not elemental. They used what they call alchemic magic, using alchemy. Remember, we have in our Bibles the so-called three magi men, right? Magic man, magi, they were three so-called kings, not knowing who they really were, and even if they made the trip. So this is very interesting to read because this is more modern times for us. But look, the Platonic bronze. You know what Platonic reminds me of? It reminds me of what's the name of the dome, the place in Detroit? Potomac, isn't it the Potomac River? Let's see. Let's see. River in Detroit. Let's see. We know about Erie, but there's another river that runs through, isn't it? A couple rivers, I thought. Let me see. Okay, let's just try to write it out. If we're wrong, it won't show up. That's not the right spelling, but let's see what anything comes up. The reason the reason I'm speechless right now. The reason I'm speechless right now. I don't know if they're gonna let us find this, so we're gonna try. Okay, we're gonna try. Anion in the Bible. That's what we want. So I want you to see what I'm doing right now. Anion in the Bible. I think they tried to change the name to Arnon, but it's Anion. Anion in the Bible right now. There it is. I just typed it up. Anian. You can even call it the Anion, the Indian. It doesn't matter. Anion in the Bible. Let's see if they have the King James version. I don't know. We need to understand. Oh my God. Let's just look at something before we look at something. You ready? It says the sons of Shemitah were Ahian. Look at this name right here. Shechem. Shechem, right? That's the word we have right here. It's just there's an H missing. Shechem and Sagamore refer to paramount chiefs among the Algonquins. The Algonquins are in the OSB. Anion. Why Anion? Why? Let's read it right now. Let's see what it says. The sons of Shemitah were Ahian, Shechem, Eliakim, and Aniam. That's not what we're looking for. That's not it. They're hiding it. They're hiding it. But we found Shechem. His sisters, Hamelech. Look at Molech right there in Hamelech. Gave birth to Ishhad, Ibazir, and Melah. And these were the sons of Shemitah. These are the races of the ones that were at the Tower of Babel when they built it. These are the ones that were in Canaan and all that. Chronicles. Chronicles is time. Chronology. We have to find this, so let's go back, because that's not the one we're looking for though, but we found that name right there. So let's go back to where we were. We're looking for Anion. See, it says Anion, but they changed the Anium. They put an M on the end of Anion. That's not what we're looking for though, but that's what they did. We gotta find it. I know it's in here. Please let me find this because I know I've seen it. Okay, Genesis 9, right here. Right here. Let's read it. Let's see what they got. I don't know what's going to pop up. Let's read it. This is your Japhet, your Shem. Your Shem is right here, look. Look, it's in the word. Shem. Watch. Let's read it together. Let's just read it. Okay, this. Okay, here it is. So let's see if that's the King James version. I don't know what version it is. It says, God shall enlarge Japhet. Remember, in the original language or whatever writing, there was no letter J back when the Bible was supposedly written from the scrolls. So if it's not Japhet, The Jewish person is going to tell you, oh, it was Yaphet, spelled with a Y. Even if we said Iafet, it doesn't matter. Let's read it. It says, or give him a large part of the earth and large dominions in it, as his prosperity have had. For as Bocard observes, to them belong all Europe and Lesser Asia. If they're calling something Lesser Asia, then what's Greater Asia? If they called something Lesser India, then what's Greater India? If they call it something Africa Minor, Asia Minor, then what's Major? Where was the major? Media, Iberia, Albania, part of Armenia, and all those vast countries to the north, which formerly the Scythians and now the Tartars inhabit. Not to say anything of the New World, into which the Scythians might pass through the Straits of Anian. All right, I'm not for sure if this is exactly how it says it in Genesis 9:27. So we have to open up another window and go through Bible Hub. Genesis 9:27. Let's see if we can find it. You fucking bitch. The curse of Ham, huh? Only garbage, like me, someone that's proclaimed to be garbage. So let's go back to the Mormon story. How they claimed that there was a group of people that couldn't choose to go with Jesus or go with Satan. So they were changed. They were struck, right? Their pigment changed. That's why they were black. They were slaves, right? Remember that. They were slaves, right? So we type in Genesis 9:27. This is what comes up. May God expand the territory of Japhet, and then he says something about somebody else, but we're not going to go there yet. We want to see this because we were looking, we just read on this one here, Genesis 9:27. Genesis 9:27, right here, you can see it, right? God shall enlarge Japhet. And it talks about the vast countries to the north, which formerly the Scythians and now the Tartars inhabit. There's a lot of buildings still up today that came from Tartary, the Tartars. Not to say anything of the New World. See, I know it's not going to say that in Genesis, but we're going to try to find and read it. Find it and read it. Into which the Scythians might pass through the Straits of Anian. Why is the Straits of Anian so important to all of this whole mystery? Why? Why? Now remember, we just looked up this word, the Potomac River, and we found that through looking at what? Was it this? Harper Prince? Where did we see Potomac? Let me see if I can find it again. I gotta do it quick. Oh, it was right here. Awas, right? Let's see. Letter, my name is God Awas, in the book of the law. I was written secrets of the truth, the star, and a snake, and a sword. This manifestation took the form of a pyramid of light. Where did we see it? Oh, come on. How did I find it? See, this is what I mean. How did I find it? Come on. Assyria and Persia. Savage king. You just keep that in mind. Come on, find it. What are we doing? Come on. I swore that was... It's not here, is it? No. What got us to where we were, to the Potomac? Something in his writing. He said it's something in his writings. Where is it? We gotta find it. I'm gonna sit here for a second. Hellenization of the Egyptian harmonies, meaning Horus the child. But did we hold something up? Let me see. No, it's not that one. Right there. Okay. Okay, so the history of Alexandria dates back to the city's founding by Alexander the Great in 331 BCE, which is bullshit. It's 331 before conquest. Yet, before that, there were some big port cities just east of Alexander at the western edge of what is now Abu Qir Bay, which I don't want to talk about that yet. The canopic westernmost branch of the Nile Delta still exists at the time. Were they calling the Nile Delta the Anian? I'm going to have to look into that part more realistic because you can see the curly locks now. They're trying to make him seem like he's a Caucasian dude, right? Hellenistic religion is the late form of ancient Greek religion covering any of the various systems of beliefs and practices of the people who lived under the influence of ancient Greek culture during the Hellenistic period in the Roman Empire. How could you be under the influence of an ancient Greek culture? It's called Babylon. It's called Babylon. Now, I'm going to show you right now. We're done playing games. Watch this. Watch this. And there's the proof of faith right there and hope. So, we're going to come back here. Now, all we did is I said, doesn't that word Ptolemaic look like something else? And so we typed it up. Ptolemaic, Potomac, Ptolemaic, Potomac, Potomac. The Potomac River is the Anian. Remember, the city of Detroit. Look at the definition of Detroit. Watch. Right now. Now you're going to get it. Watch. Detroit. No one ever fucking does this. Right there it is. You can see it. Detroit of Anion. Detroit of Anion. Your definition of the word Detroit is Anion. This is why you poor people living in Detroit, Michigan had your waters poisoned on purpose. Because there's such a high number of you black folks living there. You're in a ghetto, you're trapped in the city. The city's got you on watch, bitch. This is what they were hiding the whole time. The Strait of Anion was a semi-mythical strait, and that's why we gotta understand that you're never gonna find your old King David, because now he's a myth. When you find out the trueness of King David, you find the real Prester John, their so-called person that was contemporaneous with Moses. With Joshua, the only begotten son of who? Moses, who really was King David. Strait of Anion. And look at the date on this map. The Strait of Anion was a semi-mythical strait documented from around 1560 that was believed by early modern cartographers to mark the boundary between North America and Asia and to permit access to the northwest passage from the Arctic Ocean to the Pacific. So why are we talking about this Anion? Because the Anion leads right into Lake Erie, and it leads all the way down through the, Chesapeake Bay? But where did it start? From the Pacific. The Anion used to run in between Asia and the U.S. or North America, and it led all the way down through to Michigan, through Detroit. And that's why they call it Detroit of Anion. Detroit of Anion is in the Bible. Now we get to read it at Genesis 9. And guess what? Your Anion is just a waterway. What is a Jordan called? A waterway. There was no Jordan without the letter J. That's how they covered up Moses and the so-called Israelites coming out of Egypt. Your Egypt was north of where Babylon was. There is a rock in the dome in their Israel today. So many people worship it, right? But it's an astrologically cut stone. What shape is the stone cut into? You could take that rock, turn it, and put it right above Washington State, all through that whole top area. Your Idaho, your Montana, your Washington. That's what that rock is. They know that. You don't think so? Ask them where their Bohemia Club is. Yes, it's in California, but at the very top tip edge. Why? Because it's part of the rock. They know Moses, their Moses, and the Israelites crossed from Asia to here, or the real story, they crossed from here over to Asia. That's why we have Moscow. Moscow came from the Moshe, the one they're calling Moses. As his people kept growing up, they came under threat of who? Genghis Khan. Genghis ran into Moses, killed his daughters. Here. That all happened with Hiawatha. You can see it in some of these pictures here. Look, there's your California. Do you see that? There's your Cali. Look at how it cuts right through. Remember, we have Alaska up here, right? But it cut right through all the way down to Detroit. They got the Detroit way over here, but it cut through here, through Lake Erie. Now you know why Lake Erie is called Lake Erie. It's Erie because a lot of death went on there. Just like the state of Missouri or Missouri. You got the Red River in between Oklahoma and Texas because there was blood in those waters, bitch. They sent people from the Northeast on a train ride down there just to kill them. So, what is the Strait of Anian doing in the Bible? Well, let's see. Genesis 9, and Canaan shall be a slave to them. Now, you cannot have Canaan without Canaanites. Who makes up the Canaanites? And why do we have our dogs as canines? So get the real picture. A lot of these Canaans and Canaanites were Sephalli. Canaanites should be the slave to them, living with Japhet. Who's man's best friend today? The dog. You say it backwards, and it's God. You got a newbie in the OSV. He's got a dog head. And yet, he guards hell? Like, who's going in, who's coming out? Even after the children of Shem will be exiled slaves, will be sold to them from the children of Canaan. Let's read that again. Even after the children of Shem will be exiled slaves, will be sold to them from the children of Canaan. I'm gonna take a 3-minute break because I'm totally pissed off right now, and I'll be back again.
drop. Now I'm gonna hurry. We'll take it up. I'm gonna go over straight in here. Now I'm gonna drop on the main one. So hold on. I'm good. Let's get back to that one. Now look at this one. Now squeeze it. Just squeeze it and squeeze it. Squeeze it till you feel it. Squeeze till you feel it. You should have done that. Squeeze it until you feel good. Sorry guys. Let's go. See, look at that. Oh, man. Squeeze it. There you
right, that was a long break. I'm sorry, but I think I'm even gonna end this today because this is the beginning of blowing this book up. Why you have to blow it up? Because this is the book they gave us to have us turning the other cheek as slaves, so they can rape our women, do everything. The rapture happened already. Armageddon happened against people already. Even in their OSB book, it talks about an end coming that they're still waiting for. They've been waiting for years. You know, I'm pissed. I'm pissed right now. I'm done. Even if nobody checks this out, that's all right. I don't care about it. I know the reason I'm putting this together, but I'm done. Listen, didn't mean to waste your time. I'm trying to find my family tree and at the same time find a solution with everybody to try to stop this thing. That's the goal before it hits us all, because we have no shot. We got to create our own shot. It's that simple. So thanks for watching this. I'm going to try to wrap this up again tomorrow, 1 o'clock. Wow, sick.